Direct from Kansas City, it's a special 1-hour comic book late night with Captain Logan. And now, here's your host, Captain Logan!
Hello everyone, I am indeed Captain Logan, and welcome once again to Comic Book Late Night. So, I'm hearing a rumor running around, and I'm not going to come right out and say what website I got this rumor from, because if it turns out that it's not true, I'm going to feel like a total idiot. So I'm going to say, hey, there's a rumor. Apparently, it turns out that perhaps, maybe, Marvel is going to do their own relaunch on the heels of DC's giant relaunch. Of course, everybody knows by now, because it's the only big comic news anybody's been wanting to talk about for the last month, that DC is relaunching with 52 brand new titles, that it's kind of a reboot, it's kind of not, it's super confusing, and they're going to start doing digital, and same-day digital. And Marvel is thinking maybe they ought to do the same thing. Maybe. I don't know if this is true. It sounds really weird, because it sounds really arbitrary to me, some of the things that they're talking about doing. Let me just give you the list of the things that they're talking about doing. It seems really kind of random and arbitrary to me, the changes that they're making. The first one, let me just read you the list here. The first one is that Kingpin is going to be changed to an African-American man. Now, I don't immediately have a problem with this. I'm just not sure what the point of the change is. So hopefully in execution, we'll find out that this is a good idea. Apparently, Galactus is going to be reduced to a giant cloud. Instead of being the big purple man we all know and love, to make it more realistic, he's going to be transformed into a giant cloud. Dr. Octopus is going to be a more fleshed out and more human character. That sounds like a good idea. But Sandman is going to be changed to a more pathetic character. And we'll find in the first issue, in the rebooted Amazing Spider-Man #1, that every foe Spider-Man has ever had has something to do with Uncle Ben's death. We're also apparently going to find that Venom's backstory and the origin of the black costume will all be done in the second issue of Spider-Man. And Eddie Brock is going to look suspiciously like the guy from that 70s show. They're going to use Robert Downey as the basis of Iron Man. They're going to make Iron Man basically Robert Downey Jr. So they're going to make no changes at all in Iron Man. The Hulk will be really cerebral at first, but then when that doesn't really work and it doesn't sell well, they'll change into something that's a lot more pleasing for a mass audience and a great deal more exciting. The Human Torch and Captain America will look exactly identical. And to answer DC's same-day digital, Marvel is going to change the name of the digital part on their website. Instead of being called Marvel Digital Comics Unlimited, they're going to change the name to Marvel Digital Comics Unlimited as long as you don't have a budget. And every ongoing is going to be canceled, and instead of ongoings, they're just going to have nothing but miniseries. And finally, this is my favorite. Finally, the Watcher's face is going to be perpetually hidden under a conveniently placed facepalm. Well, hey, let's jump right into a trivia question, shall we? Today's trivia question is, Joe Fixit was an alias taken by what major Marvel character? For a short period, he was called Joe Fixit. Who is that character? If you think you know, leave it in the comments below, and whoever gets it right first, I'll be sure to mention in next episode of Late Night. Last week's question was, in an issue of Action Comics in 2004, who stole Superman? The correct answer to that is Lila, and that was correctly answered by To Mercy. Now it's time once again for another exciting edition of Know Your Batmobiles. Here's a Batmobile. Is it from 1985, 1988, or 1991? And I'll be back at the end of the show to mention the correct year for that Batmobile. I've got a very special show for you tonight. Tonight I'm going to be doing a Primal Paper Spectacular. That's right, I'm going to be looking at all kinds of stuff having to do with Primal Paper out of Norfolk, Virginia. They're a small press doing lots of really, really interesting indie underground comic books. And we're going to be talking to Bob Frantz, who's the author of 41, a post-apocalyptic adventure that I reviewed a couple months ago. We're also going to be talking to the real Manos, Justin Cristelli himself, and talking about his upcoming Red Knight book. We're also going to be taking a look at The Skyrocket by Mike Federale. A little later, I'm also going to count down my top 5 upcoming books, things I'm most looking forward to coming out soon. But first, right now, let's go straight on to the news. Wait, let's jump right into it, shall we? I got a lot of small news articles here, so just going to throw these out kind of rapid fire. First thing is, Thor 2 is indeed definitely going to happen, which we all expected, and it's not going to be directed by Branagh. It's going to come out after Iron Man 3, so more details on that as it develops. There's a list that just came out by Newsarama of the top 10 books that have kept their numbering ever since they started, which they decided to go ahead and do since Action and Detective and Batman and Superman all got renumbered for the first time ever, a lot of them. And I still think it's really sad what happened with Action and Detective. I would have liked to have seen them go well past 1,000 and not just get renumbered and then brought back to 1,000 like they're bound to, but really legitimately staying the same. Anyway, but that's a neat list. Included on there are things like Sonic the Hedgehog, which has kept its numbering forever, Spawn, which has not changed its numbering, and that's really impressive, by the way. I didn't say anything I want to about Todd McFarlane, but you know, his universe had Spawn like become God almost, Al Simmons I mean, and like restart the universe, and he still didn't renumber his book. That's really cool. And then Hellblazer's on that list also. So anyway, go take a look at that if you get a chance. That's kind of neat. And then Floss Magazine has claimed that Adam West is apparently going to have a cameo in The Dark Knight Rises. Now this is just a rumor. This was just one website that you know, came out and said this, and you never know if that's true. So anyway, I think it'd be really cool if that actually happened. I'm really excited about it. I don't know if I could get so lucky that something like that might actually happen. But anyway, Adam West in Dark Knight Rises. I hope that's not a rumor. There's this new comic book anthology being put together called Womanthology by women in comics, both big names and not big names. And they got on Kickstarter, and they're trying to get a bunch of donations through Kickstarter. And if you don't know what Kickstarter is, I think I've probably talked about it before, but it's this really neat website where you can put together a project and you can make a video, and if they approve your video and they like what you're trying to do, they'll let you put it up on their website, and then you set a goal of how much money you think you need, your startup capital, to get a project started, you know, an independent project, and a lot of it's, you know, creative type projects. And there's a lot of comic book stuff that happens on there, and in fact a lot of the guys at Primal Paper have used it and have been successful at getting their projects started. It's a really neat service. It's a really great thing. And the kicker, is that if you don't manage to get what you set out to get, you don't get any of what's pledged. So people can go on there and pledge, but if you don't meet it, they don't end up giving you any money. And this Womanthology thing, Gail Simone's involved. In fact, some other women involved in this that you may have heard of. Gail Simone, Barbara Kessel, Devin Grayson, Fiona Staples. A lot of big names, big female names in comics are involved in this. There's 140 of them, of different creators involved in this thing. And when they started, the number I heard, I believe, is they wanted 20 or 25,000. I think 25,000 was their goal in 30 days to get to. And they hit it in less than 24 hours. And at the time of this taping, it's only been up for a couple days, and they've already hit just under $53,000. So they've more than doubled what they set out to do, and they've still got 27, 28 days left. It's going to be really interesting to see what they end up raising. And obviously this book is probably going to happen. And what that tells me is that people are itching to see more comic books by female creators, and I'm among them. There's a lot of really great women in comics, and they don't get the time of day by a lot of companies, it seems. So I don't know. It's really sad. It's sad how. And I don't want to get on a soapbox, but, you know, it's sad how women get treated in comics, I mean, like female characters sometimes, and then it's sad how female creators get treated in comics. And this should tell us something. This is very good news. And Captain America, of course, comes out July 22nd. You can watch the new trailer. Just came out a couple weeks ago. I know this is kind of old news, but I thought I'd mention it in case you haven't seen that new trailer. I'll put a link to it under the video. And I thought this was kind of amusing, so I just threw this out there. In the Ukraine, Russia, and South Korea, they've taken out Captain America from the title of the film. It's just called The First Avenger. So that tells you how those countries feel about us. And finally, I just want to mention, in case you didn't know about it, Netflix just put up tons and tons of new superhero stuff, lots of cartoons. They just put up the 90s X-Men series, in case you didn't know about that. Go check it out. I've been watching a few episodes here and there of that. But they've got tons of other stuff, too. They've got the Iron Man series from the 90s. They've got the Incredible Hulk. They've got every season of Power Rangers. No, it's not a comic book, but just in case you're interested in that, Saban went nuts and put up like every series they ever made nearly. So anyway, go check that out if you happen to have a Netflix account. And be sure to, for more news, check out Duke and Manos' comic news show on Geekvolution 1993's channel. And hey, that's it for the news. And now it's time for a brand spanking new recurring segment called Indie Spotlight. And tonight we're going to take a good close look at Mike Federali's The Skyrocket from Primal Paper. And there are currently 3 issues. He's working on more. And let's go ahead and get into it. Mike Federali and Os Petrelli have put out a 3-issue story arc so far that's highly entertaining, quick-witted science fiction. Sam is an ex-supervillain now trying to move past her darker past and show the world she can be more than what she was. She has a robot sidekick appropriately named Watson, as there is a major mystery component to the book. I think the best way I could describe it is as a futuristic science fiction detective story with superhero components, although I do think it's interesting that the Skyrocket was once considered a supervillain, as so far I've seen no mention of superheroes. I wonder if there are any in this universe. A government agent contacts Sam and blackmails her into helping stop a giant monster fight, as her flying suit gives her the ability to take care of that problem, threatening that if she doesn't cooperate, they'll make her secret supervillain identity public. There's a big action-packed fight with the huge, eyeless, hairy monster in the first issue that's top-notch action, and let me take this opportunity to praise Petroli's diverse artwork. His human characters are drawn in manga-inspired style, which I resisted at first, not being a big fan of Japanese comics, but the pacing of the dialogue and the action isn't too manga-derived at all, and the style began to fit the setting as I continued reading. But I'm especially impressed with Petroli's choices in action, with what he shows us and doesn't show us, and how he uses a variety of shots that seem inspired by any number of different traditions. For example, there are a couple of panels that back off and show us a whole landscape with the 2 figures, Skyrocket and the monster, facing off, and it's in silhouette, which looks very Frank Miller. As the story progresses, we find that the monster is mysteriously directly connected to the Skyrocket's past in a really unusual and unpredictable way, and this mystery made me very excited to continue. The series does seem to get more violent and more thematically adult as it continues. As mild as it was the first issue, I was somewhat surprised by how comparatively graphic the next one is, though the most graphic violence is, again, handled in silhouette. The third issue introduces us to the mastermind mad scientist who's behind everything, and he's truly grotesque and creepy. I won't spoil any more of the plot for you. Federali is doing a great job of writing a female protagonist who's likable, believable, and someone I'd like to get to know. Redemption is always an appealing direction for a character, and somewhat like Angel in the Buffy and Angel series, what I'm most curious about now is what she was like as a supervillain. I want to see the darker Sam, and I'm confident that that's background we'll get in the later issues. Skyrocket doesn't read as lighthearted as Vince White's Willpower, but it is an optimistic book that seems to be about giving people second chances. It also has an edge that makes it hard to call where it'll go next. As I said, 3 issues are out now, more to come, really fresh, unusual stuff like everything coming out of Primal Paper. And now I'd like to count down the top 5 books I'm most looking forward to coming out later in the summer and early in the fall. Let me note first that I wanted to put Red Knight on this list, as I am really looking forward to Manos' comic, but since Manos is going to be on the show talking about it later, I thought it would only be fair to do 5 books that aren't anything that I'm talking about later in the program. So I'll put Red Knight at number 6 on this list, and let me go ahead and start now with number 5, which is X-Men Schism from Marvel. Now it's been a while since I've really been interested in X titles, but lately I've been giving them a shot again, and I've been digging the main X-Men title quite a bit. I've just been reading it here and there, but I like the current arc, and Schism to me sounds like kind of what Civil War ought to have been in a way. What I mean is, it's a civil war, but it's not political, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what's done with it. I don't know if ultimately I'm going to be real interested in reading the books after it, as I'm not a huge fan, as a lot of people, of Wolverine being a leader. You know, they're going to do Wolverine and the X-Men, and they're going to have a book with Cyclops being the leader of the other side of the X-Men. But I do kind of enjoy the idea of two different X-Men teams in different places, and I'm ultimately just really looking forward to seeing what happens with this giant feud between Wolverine and Cyclops. Because, hey, that's a feud that's been around for a really long time. I'm one of the guys, by the way, that wasn't a big fan of Iron Man versus Captain America in Civil War. I thought it was kind of forced, and this is something that makes a lot of sense, and hopefully it's handled well, but it's actually a little event that I'm kind of looking forward to seeing. Number 4 is Resurrection Man. It's the one book in the DC relaunch that I put on this list solely because I actually am a fan of Resurrection Man. I have every issue of Resurrection Man. I think I've mentioned that on the show before, but in case you don't know, and in case you don't know what Resurrection Man is, in the mid to late 90s, I think in the last couple of years of the 90s, there was this book called Resurrection Man, and it only made about 50 or so issues before it was canceled. And it was mainstream DC, but it kind of felt like a Vertigo book. It was always really kind of odd that it didn't go Vertigo. And there's crossover with Supergirl at one place where Resurrection Man is in her book, and then it goes back in his book, and she's there. But anyway, Resurrection Man is this guy who, every time he dies, he gets a new power. He comes back to life, and he gets a new power. And I just love that shtick. It's really fun. And it's kind of a dark book, but it's like dark. It's very dark humor. And really, what he'll do is he'll get a really crappy kind of drab superpower, and then he'll just like jump into a river or get hit by a bus or something, so that he'll die real quick and get a better power. And one of the things that really cracks me up is when he met Hitman, and DC's Hitman, not the video game, Hitman. And Hitman doesn't like the powers he's getting, so he just keeps shooting him in the head until he gets a better power. And it's really funny. So I honestly don't think it'll last. It wasn't a book that sold before. I'm not sure why DC thinks it'll sell now, but I am looking forward to seeing Mitch Shelley coming back. And I was really excited when he popped up in Brightest Day. And I think I've talked about all this before on the show. But anyway, that's a book that I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens. And if nothing else, it allows me to be a completionist for my Resurrection Man collection, as I know I have every issue Resurrection Man ever popped up in, because it's not hard. The number 3 book I'm most looking forward to coming out is Angel and Faith from Dark Horse. So Buffy Season 8 just ended. We're coming up into Buffy Season 9, and there's going to be a book going along that that Dark Horse is putting out, which is an Angel and Faith book, which is really fun. That's one of my favorite team-ups in the Angel universe. I really like seeing those two together. One of my favorite episodes in Angel, still to this day, is the first season 2-parter where she's on the rampage, and Angel has to stop her and kind of try to help fix her psyche and all of that. They're great together, and them getting their own book is really exciting to me. So I've got to catch up on the rest of Buffy Season 8 because I've only read about half of it, and so I don't know if I'm going to wait to read this until I finish that. I do know how it ends because I have this thing where I sometimes end up seeing spoilers I didn't mean to see. I won't spoil it for you if you don't know. But anyway, it's going to be interesting with the ending of Buffy Season 8 to see what's done with that book, and it's also really nice that Dark Horse now has the rights to use the characters from the Angel series, which they didn't have before apparently, and so it'll be interesting to see who pops up here and there and that sort of thing. Number 2 is Star Trek from IDW. IDW finally putting out a monthly Star Trek series. This news just came out a couple weeks ago, and I've been kind of excited about it since I found out. So they're doing a monthly Star Trek series, which will be the J.J. Abrams continuity, the new rebooted continuity, and it's going to be the original Star Trek episodes redone, rebooted. And this is an idea I actually kind of had years ago, where I thought, because I always felt like Enterprise shouldn't really be canon because it's so different and they make so many, they take so many creative liberties in that show, that especially with the Borg episode they did, Regeneration, it always felt to me like that show was what the past would have been had the future impacted it in some way, which it seemed to have, especially with First Contact. And I always thought, what if there was a show that was the original series, but if Enterprise had actually happened? And in a way, that's kind of what we're getting with this comic book series, which is really exciting. And so I don't know how good it'll be, but I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with it. My number one is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from IDW. Now, I don't know if this series is going to be any good or not, but I'm really excited just to see a new Ninja Turtle series out. And the art really excites me. It looks like, good, half-dark Ninja Turtles action. And I don't know a lot about it beyond that. I don't want to know. I really want to kind of come into this one cold. But I'm just excited to see a new Ninja Turtles series. And I'm kind of surprised IDW got the licensing to it. So yeah, my top two are IDW books. So I guess I'll be picking up some more IDW. My first guest tonight is Bob Frantz, author of 41 from Primal Paper, and this was an interview we actually did a few weeks back, so it's a little bit outdated. I apologize for that. I wasn't able to get it up until now. It's also in the old interview format. You'll find a little bit later when I talk to Manos that interview is going to be in the new and improved format. So you'll actually see the format shift for the interviews change in this very episode. Anyway, without further ado, here's Bob Frantz. Let's take a listen. All right, I'm here with Bob Frantz. Bob, say hello.
Hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bob Frantz interview. I'm very happy to be here, Captain Logan.
Bob is the writer for Primal Paper's 41. Now he's got 2 issues out so far, and it's this really interesting post-apocalyptic future thing that happens 41 years after the apocalypse.
That's right. That's right. And I promise, Captain Logan, before you continue, I just want to throw this out there because I recently did Free Comic Book Day, and everybody looks at my book and goes, "Oh, so this is like The Walking Dead, or this is zombie stuff." I said, No. There will never be a zombie anywhere in my book. No offense to Robert Kirkman, he's a great writer, and I would never want to trample down that road. But there will never, ever be a zombie in my comic. And just because, comic book fans, that you have a post-apocalyptic world doesn't necessarily mean there was a zombie outbreak. That's all I'm saying.
Well, there's different sorts of apocalypse.
Yeah, but for some reason now, because The Walking Dead is so hot, everybody thinks apocalypse, they think zombies. It's just the two kind of go hand in hand. But no, there is nothing to do with zombies in this book. I just wanted to throw that out there for myself because sometimes it drives me crazy.
Bob also has a new podcast he's starting. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
That's right. I started a podcast called Bob's Boneyard. Go to bobsboneyard.com. It's myself and 2 other gentlemen that were recently, relieved of our positions from a commercial radio station here in Norfolk, Virginia. And we've decided to forge ahead. We're entering the 21st century of entertainment and technology. So we have a podcast. We do 2 shows a week. We do shows on Mondays and Fridays, and we've also started doing a movie night, which is kind of cool. What we do is we Ustream. We'll sit around my house and we'll watch a movie on Netflix, and we'll just Ustream it. So it's basically almost like a riff track or Mystery Science Theater 3000. The first one we did was RoboCop 3, and people really seem to dig it. Tomorrow night we'll be watching Godzilla versus Mothra, which is going to be very fun.
Awesome. Are you reposting those?
Oh, yeah, of course. You can get them on our website. Everything's streaming right there on our website. You can check us out on iTunes. Just search iTunes. It's Bob's Boneyard. It's a great website. It's a very silly and stupid podcast made by silly and stupid people. So I think people will really enjoy it.
And also, I should mention, in case you didn't see the review before, that Bob, of course, in with Primal Paper, knows the real Manos and all the guys that work there at Primal Paper.
Yes, I'm actually one of the founding members of Primal Paper Comics, believe it or not. It was myself and Mike Federale, who I believe you've had on the show. It's just
I actually haven't had him on yet, but I have talked to him.
Yeah, Mike's a great guy, man. I think you're really going to enjoy Mike. He's a cool dude. He's got 1,000 ideas. He's a lot of fun to be around.
Bob, I've got some questions prepared for you, and are you ready to enter the very ominous Comic Grill?
You know what? I'm ready, sir.
All right. Here we go. Question number 1. What is the story behind the 2 artists you've worked with on 41, books 1 and 2, and who is drawing issue 3?
Okay. Issue 1 was drawn by a gentleman by the name of Pablo Pepino. He's worked for Marvel. He drew an 8-page story for Tomb of Terror for Son of Satan. And he's doing a book now, which is 28 Days Later, believe it or not, which is, I think, kind of funny considering...
Oh, yeah, that is ironic, isn't it?
So he's doing 28 Days Later for Boom. So, needless to say, Pablo's plate got a little full. And, when you're getting work from Marvel and Boom, it's easy to kind of say, hey, I gotta turn some stuff down. So unfortunately he turned me down, which, hey, I completely understand. If Marvel or Boom came to me and said, hey, we want you to write something for us, I would do it in a second. So there's no hard feelings. Pablo's a great artist. He's a fantastic guy. But, so what I did was in the interim, while issue 1 was being completed, because I made him say, well, you at least have to finish issue 1 because I had like 19 pages of it. I said, you have to finish that. I found another artist who goes by the name of Alexander Singleton. He is a very talented designer out of England, and his work is fantastic as well. It's just a different kind of fantastic. Like, they have different subtleties. I think you can notice it. If you've read both books, you notice that there is a different artist, but I think it's similar enough.
That's what I thought.
You read them both. I mean, they're similar enough, I think, in vein that it works out really well. So I'm really happy to work with Alex. Alex will be doing issue 3. Issue 3's finished. It's just I'm not going to put it out until I'm halfway through with issue 4.
Okay, cool.
You see what I'm saying? So, like, I have issue 3 sitting at home on my computer, completely ready to print. We're ready to roll. But I will not put it out until issue 4 until the artwork is halfway done with issue 4. Because, drawing the issues takes, quite a amount of time, so I'm not going to rush anything out just to get it out.
Bob, question number 2. Did you base any of the characters in the mercenary group in 41 on anyone you know?
They all have little bits of me inside of them, especially the mute, believe it or not. No, not at all. Every member of the comic from the book is actually named after a player, former or present, of the New York Metropolitans. The New York Mets, my favorite baseball team.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes. Hey, what's up, buddy? How we doing? Nice. Check out the podcast. I like it. Thank you. I've got the, I'm a big star in this town. But anyway, yeah, even the title itself comes from a New York Met, the only New York Met in the Hall of Fame, Tom Seaver, number 41. That's where the number came from.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, that's a big secret. Don't tell anybody.
Question number 3. I'm sure, being a comic book writer, that you read comic books. What are some great non-superhero comics you'd recommend to some of our listeners who may never have gotten outside of the superhero realm?
See, that's the really funny part about it is it's ironic because I write a book that has no capes in it, but all I read are capes. The only book,
awesome. Okay.
The only book that I read that's not superhero-y, I guess, would be American Vampire, and that's it.
Which is a great book.
And I guess I've read a lot of the Walking Dead, the back issues. I'm not current with Walking Dead, but I read American Vampire and I've read Walking Dead, and that's really it. Everything else I always read superheroes. And it's
in that case, what's the best title you've got right now?
The title that I'm most excited about right now is FF.
Yeah, really?
I think, and I've said it once before and I'll say it again, I'll scream it from the rooftops. Jonathan Hickman is the best writer in comics right now.
He's quite brilliant.
His work is just brilliant. And FF is a testament of that. It's wonderful. And even S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s another great book. I guess S.H.I.E.L.D.'s kind of capey, but, his S.H.I.E.L.D. work is great. That's the reason why I don't write cape books, is because I feel like every cape story has been done. I have no idea what kind of story I would even want to tell.
Yeah.
Because, I come up with an idea oh, this would be cool. Then somebody goes, no, that happened in Batman, issues 400 through 405. It's crap. You know what I mean? So I'll just stick to what I'm doing,
Bob, question number 4. You are a Star Trek fan, am I right?
Of course I'm a Star Trek fan.
How many cons have you been to?
I've never been to a Star Trek convention.
Have you not? I figured you had.
No, I've never been. They don't really have them close enough to me. And, before, when because I was geeky before, but I drank a lot. But now I stopped drinking, and I recently stopped drinking. It's been about 3 or 4 years I stopped drinking, and I haven't had the chance to go. Because one of the things that I would have to do is I would have to convince my wife to go to one of these things with me, and I don't think she'd be down to go to a Star Trek convention. But I will say that I've always wanted to go, and I have another idea in my head for Star Trek that I want to do as another podcast. Because while my wife was pregnant right after we had the baby, I literally watched, for 3 months, I watched every episode of Next Generation in chronological order, and it was the best thing in the entire world, ever.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I love Next Generation more than any of the other series. It's by far my favorite.
Oh, me too. That's what I grew up with.
Yeah, it's awesome. It was sad because when I started watching it, they actually canceled it. So it was just kind of a bummer because I got into it late. But then as I've grown in my elder years, I've become a huge Star Trek fan. I just love Jean-Luc Picard. He's the coolest dude in the whole wide world.
Bob, last question. Of course, 41 being this big post-apocalyptic piece, it's pretty cinematic looking, I think. And if money were no object and you had your choice of directors, who would you hire to bring 41 to the screen?
That's such a tough call. I think it looks cinematic because it has to be. You have to kind of take in the scope of it all, because you're not dealing with a city like Gotham or New York City, for example, with Spider-Man or anything like that at all. You're dealing with an entire world. And when I had the vision in my head, I wanted it to look like the old spaghetti westerns, like the sprawling epic shots of the, of the horizon with the lone hero on his horse kind of walking around. I guess if I had my druthers, the person I would want to direct the film would be Akira Kurosawa, because I love samurais. I love samurai films, and I think he really kind of took that John Ford style and made it his own.
Good call.
Like, I love Akira Kurosawa. The guy's awesome. Like, I make my wife watch so many samurai movies, and I'm afraid she's going blind from reading all the subtitles. It's awful. But I mean, we do what we have to do, you know?
And is Facebook the best way for people to get it?
At the moment, yes. A friend of mine is working on my website, but he goes to college, and, with finals and all, he didn't really have a lot of time. But yeah, it's facebook.com/41comic, or you can look me up on Twitter. It's just @41comic. If you want the book, I say buy it. It's really good. It's a fun tale. It's shoot 'em up. I like to sell it as like, it's the most unnecessary shoot 'em up thing you've ever seen before in your entire life. Like at one point in issue 1, there is a person who's laying on the ground who's literally crackling because he's on fire. I mean, that's just awesome. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of over the top. It's violent. Don't ask me questions about how they got gas, because you know what? They solved that problem, in the 22nd year. I don't have to worry about that. This is where we are now. And this is what we're doing. So it's a good book. I enjoy it. I think you'll like it. I think your readers will like it. It's beautifully drawn. The story's good. I'm not going to brag, because if I say the story's great, then I'll be bragging. But the story's good, and it gets better. So that's the best part about it.
No, the story is good, and if nothing else, the reveal at the end of 2 should keep people going.
Yeah, I think the reveal at the end of 2 is great.
It's a good reveal.
And I've talked to Justin, but I haven't brought him up to it because he was doing a review on his podcast, not his podcast, but his YouTube page. And he actually showed the last page of 2 in his review. And I was like, what are you doing? You're killing me. That's the big reveal. Oh God, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, Manos doesn't worry too much about spoilers.
No, absolutely not. I mean, and God bless him. I love him to death. He's a great guy. He's a partner of mine. We're brothers in arms here at Primal Paper. But I mean, the issue had been out like 3 days.
Well, Bob, thanks a whole lot for being on the show. I appreciate you having you on. And everybody, be sure to check out boneyard.com. Boneyard.com.
Bob's Barnyard. That's a gay porn site that you can look at.
It's an entirely different thing. Yeah. But anyway, bobsboneyard.com is the podcast.
Yes.
And be sure to go to Facebook and pick up the book. What are you selling the book for?
I'm selling the book for $2.99. That's it.
Okay, awesome. So regular price.
Sell it for anything higher. And I'll say this, issue 2 is the largest $2.99 book you're ever going to get, because it's almost 36 pages total.
It's thick. Yeah, I was surprised.
The reason why is because, like I said, I had the problem with my artist, so I actually had to cut off the last 4 or 5 pages of issue 1. They're actually in issue 2. So the interrogation scene that you see in issue 2, that was initially supposed to be in issue 1, but Pablo was on such a tight schedule with all of his other commitments that I just said, you know what, screw it, I'll just cut it and I put it in issue 1. I put it in issue 2, so that's what happened.
It works. I didn't notice it, so yeah, it's good.
It's really well, because the events happen very quickly, so it's just, you got to pay attention. It's a good book. I really enjoy it. Thank you for having me on, Captain Logan. I really appreciate it. You're a great
man.
And anytime you need someone to talk a lot, I'm your man.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Today's Obscure Character of the Week is brought to you by Aunt May, who, like a lot of people, is herself wondering how in the world, after all these years, she's still alive. Have you ever heard of Mr. Nobody? First appearing in Doom Patrol, anybody else sensing a theme with these obscure Doom Patrol characters? As Mr. Morden in issue 86 in 1964, he was reintroduced with a backstory for why he went missing for so long, as he was only seen in the one issue in the first place, by Grant Morrison in 1989 in the second volume of Doom Patrol. Monsieur Mala and the Brain, former members of the Brotherhood of Evil, but not of evil mutants, told him that if he ever returned, they'd kill him, so he didn't return. He naturally did what anyone in exile would do. He had an ex-Nazi scientist scientists do experiments on him, and he ended up with the power to take away people's sanity. Oh, what could possibly go wrong? Well, in a twist you'd never catch in a million years, he lost his own sanity. As Mr. Nobody, he's a 2D shadow, and he founds the Brotherhood of Dada, which could have been named the Brotherhood of characters more obscure than he is, including folks like Sleepwalk, who's super strong only when sleepwalking, Frenzy, who turns into a cyclone, Fog, who absorbs people into him when he turns into a gas, and the Quiz, who has maybe my favorite superpower ever, which is the power to have every power you've, quote, never thought of. Their villainous caper is even weirder than they are. They steal a psychoactive painting and try to use it to absorb the city of Paris. Yeah. They release the fifth horseman of the apocalypse from the painting accidentally and have to help the Doom Patrol stop it. He and his friends are then trapped in the painting by the Doom Patrol. He later escapes with the help of the new members of the Brotherhood, more weirdos with crazy powers, and then he runs for president. The government sends an agent named John Dandy, whose face is blank, but he has 6 others floating around him, and he nearly kills all of Nobody's Brotherhood. And Mr. Nobody is turned human when Dandy throws one of his faces at him. And after he gets impaled, he just fades away. When he finally returns again, he's now white instead of black and calls himself Mr. Somebody, possesses a billionaire, and then starts Mr. Somebody Enterprises. And all of that, ladies and gentlemen, is why Grant Morrison is awesome. Hey, special thanks to Mr. Colton Pope for giving us this week's Obscure Character of the Week. And if you have an idea for Obscure Character of the Week, or some fan art you'd like to show off, a question you want me to answer on the program, or anything like that, feel free to send me a personal message on Geekvolution, and I'd love to hear from you. And if there's anything else you'd like to send me in the mail, we do have a P.O. box where you can send a package, stuff for us to review, anything to add to the comic book vault, anything like that. And our P.O. box is 14183 Lenexa, Kansas 66285. My next guest is the ever-talented Justin Cristelli, otherwise known as The Real Manos. Manos, of course, is a good friend of ours here at Geekvolution. He has lots of stuff currently self-published, and he's working on a book that's actually about to come out here this month called Red Knight. He's finally publishing his long-awaited comic book. Welcome now, The Real Manos.
Hi, Logan. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going, Manos?
It's doing really well. Thanks for asking.
So Red Knight's coming out. You've also got a couple other books people can buy. Would you briefly mention all the stuff that is out right now from you for purchase, and then tell us what Red Knight is and what it's about?
Okay. I will start at the very beginning. The first book I have is a small collection of short stories. It's called Caprice and Other Stories. What prompted me to self-publish this was the film based on the Caprice short story. I decided, well, let's give readers a chance to actually get a look at the story that this is based on. And after that actually turned out pretty successful. So I did the Red Knight pulp novel. Because at the time I thought I would not be able to get a comic off the ground for it. And this is a character I've wanted to do forever. So I released that, and that got me in contact with some other people who have been able to self-publish fairly easily, actually, much easier than I anticipated. So that's what got me to this point where I'm doing the Red Knight comic book. By the way, the Red Knight pulp novel and Caprice and Other Stories are available on Lulu.com.
Now, let me ask you, man, how close is the Red Knight comic to the pulp novel?
They're very close. The first 3-issue story arc is the same story, essentially. What's weird is, even though I published the pulp novel first, the pulp novel is basically an adaptation of this script I had for a few years, which is basically Todd McClane's first foray into working as a superhero. There are some small differences. Just when I got to the comic page, working on it, there were some things that worked better if I tweaked it here and there than it did in the novel that I don't think would have been as interesting. And sometimes,
sure, naturally, different mediums.
Yeah, different mediums, and also the pace just kind of dictated some of the changes. But more or less, it's pretty much the same story, just with cooler art.
And what kind of superhero world are we looking at with Red Knight?
Red Knight lives in a world much like kind of a standard superhero universe, much like the DC and Marvel universes. It's been decades that superheroes first appeared. So far, the main superheroes really have started appearing in the 50s, although there were some costume characters in the 30s, and even beforehand. And it's kind of just part of the culture. One of the things that I find interesting what I'm doing about this is he had a very idealistic view of the superheroes, and he wanted to become a superhero. So in between that time where he decided as a child to do this and he's grown up, the world has actually changed and it's become really more complex than he anticipated it would be. For instance, there's these established superheroes that are sanctioned by the government, and there are these superheroes that aren't, and they have you need a license to be an established hero, and getting a license is rather difficult. You have to show up to government officials and show that you're a superhero. But if you do that, well, then you're breaking the law just by being a superhero, and you can get arrested. So it's rather tricky. It's almost a catch-22 to get a license. The best way is to get a government sponsor, and that's not so easy to get either. So it's almost kind of like a cut-off establishment trying to keep other people down. And I'm also going to make the argument that maybe it's not so bad. There are some people who try to be superheroes who aren't very good at it, and maybe they shouldn't allowed to be a superhero.
Yeah, that's really cool playing both sides like that.
Mm-hmm. And,
where it's not just, government's evil.
Yeah, no. There's a reason why they do things. It's just things sometimes don't work on a case-by-case basis.
Manos, are you ready to go into the ever-foreboding comic grill?
Let me get my safety cushion ready.
All right, here we go. Manos, question number one, very much along the same lines of what we were just talking about. What would you say is the biggest difference between mainstream superhero storytelling and comics and what you're trying to do with yours?
I think I am just simply trying to tell a story, actually. I'm trying to... I think a lot of mainstream superhero comics are now obsessed with status quos. It seems like almost every story involves setting up a new status quo just to be broken and replaced by a new status quo. And I don't particularly find that very interesting anymore. I miss the days when superheroes had adventures and they went places and they met all sorts of different people, heroes and villains. And I want to really do that with this book. I don't want the book to be very predictable, actually. One story can involve, fantasy characters, others aliens, others mob bosses. I kind of just want to evoke, the fun of being, in a superhero universe.
Well, and I'd say that just not having a chance to look at it yet because it's not out. The cover is very indicative of that.
Oh, thank you.
That's one thing I found really striking of both the cover of the book, which is remarkable art, man. I think it looks really great. But also the cover to the pulp is it really feels like it's harkening back to an earlier time when you picked up things just because they were fun.
Well, thank you. We didn't get a chance to talk about the artist yet. That is J.C. Grande, and he is an amazing artist. I'm very, very thankful I found someone as good as he is to work with on this book. And he's worked for Image actually in the past, where he did.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did a miniseries called Johnny Monster for them, and he's done some other independent works as well. And I came across him online. He answered an ad, and I was just really knocked out by his work. And it's kind of the style I was hoping to have, like a good modern, almost imagey kind of superhero art style that had a lot of energy to it.
Yeah.
At the same time, he has enough versatility to tell different kind of stories and scenes. It's fun working with him because he lives in El Salvador, and I want this comic to take place in my hometown, Norfolk. So I have to constantly, I have to actually go out and take pictures of streets and areas and places that I think would be scenic panel shots. The first big fight scene in issue 1, I actually went to where it takes place. Since it's a few blocks away from where I live. And I actually, it was weird. It was like being a film director. I mapped it out and choreographed where the action was going to be.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and we took shots of how I kind of wanted it to look like. And, like, we were going to have, the fight take place in this restaurant, then it goes into the parking lot, then it, goes over to this apartment building across the street. And we just took shots of how I think it would probably look like. And it was really cool kind of figuring out the logistics of it. Like it almost happened. And that was a lot of fun.
Manos, question 2, getting a little far off base now. If you were given the shot to write any established comic book character, who would it be, and more importantly, what would you do with it?
Oh, boy. I have so many answers to that. I would love to write Cassandra Cain.
Yeah?
It
does not surprise me that you said that.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of that character, and I would just have loads of fun. I would take her all over the DC universe and, like, really just explore my love of martial art films and just combine that with DC. I'd also love to do Daredevil. Not to mention, I also would like to do Wonder Woman too. Actually, I think she's been very mishandled for the last few years, actually, with the exception of the Gail Simone run.
Manos, question 3: what is the most obscure comic in your personal collection?
Oh, jeez. Probably the Tom Landry and the Dallas Cowboys comic. There was a couple of choices, but I think that tends to leap out at me. It was a comic book where they win the Super Bowl against the...
Why do you have that?
What? I was a big Cowboys fan when I was a kid.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I saw it I think I saw it at 7-Eleven or something like that, so I had to get it. It's basically about it's like 2 or 3 pages of them playing football against the Broncos, and they win the Super Bowl. And then a reporter asks Tom Landry about, I don't know, his upbringing. And then it like goes into a biopic of him like in the war and then building to sports. So it was definitely an interesting comic for me at the time when I was like, I think I picked that up when I was like 8 or something like that.
Manos, question 4. If you were to allow any writer and artist team in the industry to do a story with Red Knight and you could handpick them, what team would you choose?
Oh, boy. I
told you I wasn't going to make it easy on you.
No, there's so many people. If they could work together, Todd McFarlane and Peter David.
Yeah?
Would be a great team. Or Peter David and John Romita Jr. Or Amanda Connor. I actually like her work a lot. Maybe Amanda Connor and Gail Simone.
Oh, wow.
That'd be a killer team. I'd like to have them do a Red Knight story. I actually could go on and on.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, let's go to the last question, shall we?
Okay.
Question number 5. I feel like I would be remiss to not cover this with you with what's currently going on right now, and I'm sure I'll have you on the show again later on. So let's do something topical, shall we? From our lengthy discussions about the DC relaunch, I know you're not entirely happy with what's going on, and I'd love to know if you could change just one thing about it, what would it be?
Whoa. I wouldn't do the Barbara Gordon thing as Batgirl. I think that's probably, from what I've seen, without...
I know you don't like that, but I'm surprised that that's the one thing.
That's the thing that irks me the most, actually. I think without reading any of the comics, to be fair, I think that's a mistake. I think it's too late to take this character back there. And I think it's very similar to taking Wally West and making him Kid Flash again.
Yeah.
Unless they're doing that. I think it's a step backwards for the character, actually. And I don't understand why they build fans for Cassandra Cain and then make Batgirl Stephanie Brown and build a very supportive fan base for that character, and then turn around again and do this. I find it frustrating, especially considering how much I like Barbara Gordon as Oracle. I'm kind of an Oracle fan, actually.
I am too, and I mean, I'd love to give them the benefit of the doubt on it, because the first thing I thought was, well, if they're gonna make her Batgirl again, at least keep the Oracle background. That was the first thing I thought. And then when it turned out they were doing that, I was like, now I don't know if I like that or not. Yeah. One of the things that that has bothered me the most about it, the more fans have talked about it, is when somebody made this point to me that I hadn't thought of before. This is just like if they suddenly made Dick Grayson Robin again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, taking him from being, the guy in the Batman costume that isn't Bruce Wayne to Nightwing, that's no big deal. But to him to be Robin again would have been. I mean, put him in the pixie boots and the little green pants. I mean, that's the same thing.
Yeah, I don't think making him Nightwing again is a step backwards for the character, because...
Oh, neither do I. I think I considered him Nightwing in a Batman costume.
Yeah, but even for people who didn't, like he was basically a stand-in until Bruce Wayne got back.
Yeah.
Without realizing Bruce Wayne was coming back.
And I also am not a big fan of the Harley Quinn costume.
No, I'm not either.
I think that is I had to be told that was Harley Quinn.
Yeah, and the only thing, my wife pointed out to me that the only thing that's air quotes Harlequin about it is that her hair is the colors of the hat.
Yeah, and I think...
That's it.
Yeah, I think the costume is basically the colors.
Yeah.
She's holding a hammer in that shot. Now, here's the thing. That was promo stuff. She may look completely different once we get the real comic.
You think? Because it's a cover.
Maybe. Well, there's been... I'm not sure if I've heard one person react positively to that picture.
Well, that's true. But like I said, it's not just a promo thing, it's a cover.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
So you gotta wonder, I mean, all the promo things have all been covers.
I'll be honest,
There's a lot of people wondering if Superman's gonna have his regular costume.
I think he is. Maybe
I think he is too.
I think he is. I think some people have overreacted to some of the imagery on some of the covers, like the Superman one, for instance. Because I've seen other pics of him. So, I mean, his official new costume is going to be that Jim Lee one on the Justice League cover. So, it's just a cover. I mean,
but the Harley Quinn thing doesn't seem like that with Superman, right? I mean, like, Superman can put on blue jeans and go fly around, but Harley Quinn, why are you wearing that?
Yeah, well, he's a farmer. Of course he's going to wear blue jeans. And
yeah.
That's instantly what I thought of when I first saw that cover.
Yeah, well, it's like Kingdom Come, really.
Yeah, so...
We saw him as a farmer in that.
So, yeah, I am interested in... I'm trying to keep an open mind, but, I'm just hoping this isn't going to be undone in, like, 2 more years or something like that.
Yeah. Well, what's funny about it, though, is, are you going to hope it's undone if it's terrible?
Well, yeah, obviously.
Okay, well, no, I'm just saying, or you... Because I can see a person saying, well, I hope it's not undone even if it's awful, because they could just, like, fix it somehow without actually just overhauling it again.
I don't know. I'm of opinion, like, even if something in the past is done poorly, I'd rather you stick with it.
Yeah.
And just, accept it as, part of canon. Like, hey, we were kind of crazy back there, but now things are different. I don't know. I try to appreciate, especially with these franchises, like Marvel and DC, try to, embrace the silliness, as, being in the past, and, that's how it is. And people grow and people change, and characters grow and change.
Well, Manos, Red Knight is published through Primal Paper.
Correct.
And how can people get it?
They will be a couple of ways. I'll put on the various sites a P.O. box where you can order. If you don't want to use a credit card, you can send a check or a money order. It's going to be a $3 comic. I am also, like DC Comics, drawing the line at $2.99. And there's going to be a $2 shipping. And, you can either send a check or a money order. And I'm also preparing my PayPal account to accept PayPal payments. So I'm going to try and cover it on all the bases, essentially, so you can get the comic as easily as I can.
Yeah, fantastic. And as soon as that information is up, I'll have it up on our website at wearegeeks.nerds.com. I'll have a link there on the homepage where you can find that. And everybody, check out Manos. If you've never watched Manos before, be sure to check out his channel. Manos just hit over 1,000 subscribers. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
For that, The Real Manos is the name there. And does Primal Paper have a website?
Primal Paper does have a website. We're on Facebook, and we also have a separate website.
And I'm really impressed with such a small house. How great the stuff is. So.
Mm-hmm. On a shoestring budget too. We're all doing the best we can, and I think that says a lot about the talent of our group. Actually,
sometimes that can yield the most creative results.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Well, Manos, thanks a great deal for being on.
Oh, thank you. Hey, thank you so much for having me. I've always wanted to be on Comic Book Late Night.
Everybody, once again, you can see The Real Manos at his channel, and you can also see him every 2 weeks hosting with me on the Pop Culture Yearbook. And now back to the show.
Like a vast and enormous fungus, it grows and grows. It's time now to find out what I've pulled from the ever-sprawling comic book vault. Speaking of Grant Morrison, today in the Comic Book Vault, we're going to take a look at Joe the Barbarian #1 from Vertigo. Grant Morrison is a very versatile writer. What he does could often be described as strange, but it's a bunch of different kinds of strange. Joe the Barbarian, some of his more recent work, is a somewhat familiar tale about the kid who feels like an outcast and recedes into his own imagination. It's in the same vein as things like The Neverending Story, but edgier and without the same sense of innocence. Like the protagonist in Neverending Story, Joe is an outsider, he's picked on at school, and he's being raised by a single parent. But Joe's life is darker. His father is dead, and for reasons not made entirely clear in the first issue, he visits the cemetery to talk to his father, but he doesn't like him very much. It's also curious that he's in a field of crosses with no graves, which deepens the mystery of just what happened to him. In a dreary 2-page spread showing the landscape of the cemetery, all Joe has to say to his father is, "Hey Dad, you suck." On his way there, his mother reminds him he has candy in his bag and to make sure he eats it. It's an extremely subtle book that, at least for me, took a couple times through to pick up on everything that's going on, as important plot points are picked up in details rather than through obvious exposition, and often by the art rather than the dialogue. We learn that Joe's dad was actually killed in the Iraq War. His mother is having financial problems, and of course, he has to eat candy to keep his sugar up because he has a severe case of diabetes. Joe's not content with his life, but he doesn't whine about it either, which makes him more likable. Instead, in the tradition of children's fantasy literature, he gets lost in a different reality that seems to be made of his own imagination. Almost the entire first issue takes place in reality, and it isn't until the last few pages that we're introduced to this fantasy world populated by the action figures strewn out on Joe's floor, including army men and characters from Star Wars, astronauts, even Batman. We get a glimpse of a wondrous, fantastic universe, but also a frightening one, as a man in a trench coat tells Joe toward the end, "This fairy tale's on a one-way trip to hell." Sean Murphy's art is nothing short of magnificent. The detail is breathtaking, and for a story so deliberately derivative, it has a distinctive and moody visual tone all its own. There's a lot in 22 pages. It mostly serves to set up the story, sure, but in a way that instantly grabs the reader. It's unusual to see this sort of minimalistic writing from Morrison, at least from what I've read of Morrison, as he lets the art do a lot of the talking. It more than succeeds at doing what all good first issues should, and makes the reader impatient to continue. It's difficult to tell just how much I like this without having read anything after it, but so far so good, and I'm really interested in reading more. And special thanks to the Frog 6 for sending us this issue in our P.O. box. And now it's time to find out what year this week's Batmobile is from. And this week's Batmobile is indeed from the year 1988. Well, hey, that's all the time I have for you tonight. I want to thank my special guest, Bob Frantz and The Real Manos, for being on the program. Good luck to Primal Paper and all of their endeavors, and if you happen to have some extra cash lying around and you want to try out some new, unique books, that's a really great place to go. I'm loving everything they're doing, and I think that you will too. If you're ever in the Kansas City area, be sure to check out Pop Culture Comics in Overland Park, Kansas. That's our official sponsor and my very favorite place to get comic books. Check out my review show on Wednesdays, where I review new comic books coming out right there in the store. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to support your local comic book store. And remember, if anybody ever offers you illegal narcotics, just say no. And then, to get the same effect, read some old Doom Patrol. I'm Captain Logan, signing off.